Yeah, thank you all for having me. What a beautiful conference, what beautiful people, and who among any places that I would ever speak would dare to use glitter in the conference, right? Only Siri, only CFRI. I'm so grateful. I couldn't possibly, yes, give it up, give it up. And if we get kicked out of the hotel, it's my bad. So, sorry. All right, I'm going to share kind of my story, journey, art, and then we'll dive into glitter. If you are just antsy and want to dive, feel free. It's your world. So I was born in 1979, diagnosed with CF, and as you all well know, not a lot of hope at that time. Average lifespan about 14 to 17. And I've been learning a lot lately about the difference between facts and truth. Okay, I was given a lot of facts at the time that did not become my truth, right? So I'm going to say a lot of sentences that I never thought that I would say. I'm 45. I've been married for 20 years to my wife Shannon, sitting right there. Yes. I have two boys who are 16 and 14, who are standing back there. And I just ran the New York City Marathon in November. So never thought that I would say any of that. I was always interested in art, started drawing comics and things like early on from childhood and just kept it going. Never included anything about my health, perhaps not surprisingly in the CF space. It's a difficult tension. Do I talk about it all the time? Do you don't want pity, you don't want it to be in every conversation. So that was sort of my mode, not surprisingly, until I was being listed for transplant the first time. At that point, it felt kind of dishonest not to bring it in some way. So I kind of went sort of big and bold with the way that I did bring it in. And so at the time, I was doing kind of large sculptural work and Vegas marquee kind of signage. And so I infused the imagery of CF kind of into this universe. And so once I, again, perhaps not surprisingly anybody, once I reconciled sort of all of that within me, there was this endless flood of stories and symbols and things to talk about. So it started really with this piece right here, which is just simply titled, "I Want More Air," with 3 exclamation points. I was at the end of my first natural born lungs, and my lung function was in the 20s to 30s. And I was desperate for a transplant. I was starting to be evaluated. And so, again, at the time, I was doing these sculptural kind of things. This is, at the time, cardboard, foam, cut paper. There's Christmas lights in there. It's kind of a barrage of materials. But most poignantly, as Siri pointed out, all throughout really everything I do, is this infusion of glitter. When I was thinking about, of all the materials I could use that would represent the life of CF and the struggle of what it was like, what better than this medium that is so dirty and spreads everywhere and infects everything, and you can't possibly get it out of your hair, clothes, anything, and everybody hates it, but they love it. And it's transformative, and it's shiny and evocative and beautiful. And so the tension held within this very medium, I just can't stop using it. So this piece is about 4 feet by 8 feet, and I started doing things like it. This is 8 feet by 8 feet, actually. So again, these large signage pieces. This is called 65 roses, which often I have to explain what that is. Here, I don't have to spend any time doing that. So I started infusing all these symbols of biology, cellular life, cells, and also lots of shoes. Why the shoes? So as I'm searching around for, Google searching words like air and maximum air and all this stuff, what pops up? But all these Air Jordans, which blew my mind, of course, because the very shoes I coveted from my youth have air inside them, right? So like, how excited was I? And like, oh, the way that I've been coveting those shoes, I'm coveting air like that, right? So when you see Air Jordans kind of sprinkled throughout here, that's what's going on. So this was the first exhibition, just simply titled Cure, in which I kind of started to navigate some of these issues, and the things just grew from there. This is a piece that was placed in 2014 at Vertex Pharmaceuticals, which we saw in the video last night. Thank you, Siri, for that shout out. And so I found myself increasingly placing pieces in hospitals, pharmaceutical companies, medical centers, clinics, because where do people more need hope and dignity and inspiration? And where are the spaces often more bland and dull and boring than in hospitals, like maybe prisons? It's difficult to think about what would be a less inspiring place often, okay? At best, sometimes hospitals have stock art and things like that. And new construction is often a little better. But nevertheless, I'm trying to bring hope where people so desperately need it. And thankfully, now on our side, meaning us, all of us artists and creative people, and also the CF community at large, all science points to the fact that people heal faster, more effectively, and longer lasting, and less expensively when they are surrounded by beauty and art and perhaps even glitter. So I started, looking at cells and imagining, and this actually was right around the time Orkambi came out, and I was able to be on that. I was trying to hold on for Trikafta, and I get on Orkambi and start to feel a little better. So this is my imagination of my cells on Orkambi, just having a party, right? So what would it look like to render? And this is really just fast forward to this glitter project, going to be my prompt for you. I'll probably just do a few prompts. We're not going to do like a step-by-step, here's what you do. Just a prompt of like this, what would it look like to imagine a healthy, healed cell? And a lot of my work, I'm trying to just imagine what does healing look like? What does it feel like? What a healed cell, like some of you might literally know what that could look like, but I just more try to imagine it. Largely the work that I do, this is my research. This is my lab. You're all in my lab right now, and I love it, right? So I'm trying to work more in the space of obviously not facilitating physical healing in a strict sense, but the metaphysical and the what does it look like to introduce hope and life and joy. And so the more I found myself using glitter on top of glitter on top of glitter, it wasn't just like a little bit of glitter, it was an excessive amount of glitter. And so the words that I've found myself using are aggressive hope and aggressive joy, almost offensive hope and offensive joy. The very kind of joy that it would take to get through something like a CF diagnosis, right? At any stage, right? I mean, it takes more than just a little bit of joy. You have to come with like loads of hope and loads of joy, especially in moments where there seem to be none. So this was my rendition of a bronchial tree, a healthy, shiny one that I was hoping for prior to transplant. So I made this months before I was listed and got a transplant. Just again, me sort of speaking visually into reality what it is I was hoping for. This shiny, healthy bronchial tree that worked. So in this next show, we sort of amped things up a little bit. This was at a bigger gallery, and things were made out of aluminum and CNC cut. And so largely designed on the computer and then cut out of plastic aluminum, with all these sort of sine form bending machines and things. And so again, doused all in glitter, kind of like epileptic seizure level glitter, like you look at it and it's almost blinding, but you can't look away. That's what I was going for, because that's what it just felt like to me to live with CF and navigate through all these things. This piece was also included in this show, which is 52 feet by 10 feet, about 12 feet high, actually, paneled aluminum sections of a forest of bronchial trees, literally thinking about communities like this of interconnected, interwoven bronchial trees that together support themselves. And if you'll notice, there's 52 feet of phlegm dripping from the forest, right? Branches, right? That's the phlegm leaving as I sort of subconsciously made it images like this, and then later realized, oh yeah, in the old school days, like when there was no vest, I had to be flipped upside down, bronchial tree upside down, and phlegm moving off of the tree. Here's a rendition of that, right? All that infection leaving, and what you have are shiny, healthy bronchial trees. So I got out of the hospital to come to the opening of the show that night, and there's me on oxygen. I went right back into the hospital the next day. I was just kind of at the end of my lungs. I was listed. A couple years, couple months later, was found a match was found, and I was transplanted at Barnes in St. Louis. Here's a side-by-side X-ray of my old and new lungs. So you can kind of see on the right side there that that lung almost vanished, which was my right lung, and the shiny, sparkly new ones on the left. So everyone, right, in transplant always asks, like, what was that first breath like? What did it feel like? Was it amazing? It was extremely painful, right? And the first one was, right? And they have you walk as soon as you can. And here you are, pushing a cart of all the tubes you're connected to, and two people to assist you just in case you stumble or fall, which is great. But inevitably, after a few months of recovery, I felt the best that I had ever felt in my life, and created this piece, which is a 5 feet by 4 foot rendition of my surgery scene called The Inevitable Healing, and was a vision of kind of all these healthy, shiny cells kind of coming down, flowing out, however you see that. Doctors surrounding me with halos, and the halo forms look like the biological cellular forms. So there's this sort of interplay of faith. There's people kind of praying, healing, operating. I'm there lying on the operating table wearing Air Jordans, which they didn't actually let me do, but in my imagination, I'm wearing Air Jordans as I'm being transplanted with new lungs. So here's kind of a close-up of what became kind of what I've been doing since then, is these glitter paintings that have kind of dimension in so it's cut paper, drawn, cut paper, painted, glittered, and collaged all together to kind of create these scenes of, here a really shiny, healthy forest of, there's DNA strands raining from the top, and healthy cells scattered throughout. Here, there's a scar on the right side, a scar on the left side. One of the first things I was doing as I started to recover was doing sketches of the scar that now ran across my chest. I was just fascinated with it. And the tension, again, that it held of, I wish nobody would ever have to go through something like this, and yet I'm alive because of it. So we used the word paradox last night, right? Like, how can both these things, how can this be true? How can it be that I have this immense, immense joy and simultaneously carry this immense, immense sadness? So I work these things out in artwork, and here, scar on the left, scar on the right. And again, I just sort of made this, like, thinking about, art words like composition and form and line, texture. And as I look at it now, it's like, oh yeah, that's the line they cut, they open you up, and there's a scar on one side, a scar on the other side, and you're looking at all the healing happening in between. Yeah, peering into the healing. So this piece is called Scars to Stars, and then later, this is a larger commission, 55 feet by 10 feet of shiny, healthy, vibrant cells in between. If you can kind of see at the edge there, a scar on the right and a scar on the left, right? So this fusion of what I basically found myself doing is taking the very symbols and vernacular of CF, scars, cells, ambulances, hospital rooms, hospital beds, and flipping them to become the very instruments of hope and healing. Because while we wish that all of these things on nobody, pills, all of it, we wish nobody have to do any of this stuff. And we're also alive because of all of it, So how beautiful, how terrible, how awesome, how, like, paradoxical, right? Like, they all sort of fuse together. There's a kind of a close-up of this wall of 55 cells. This was a rendition of my ambulance journey from Kansas City to St. Louis, as Kansas City had no transplant center. So they emergency listed me. And again, I wasn't wearing Air Jordans at the time, but in my imagination, there's me looking out of the back view of the ambulance with the Air Jordans up and kind of this vision, kind of the scar leading to this constellation of hope, of shiny, healthy cells. I was invited, along with a lot of other artists around the world, to create a project in this park. This was in Kansas City also. My idea was to transform a dead or dying tree, find a dead or dying tree, and paint it and glitter it pink to create a revived tree, much like my own bronchial tree was revived. So we did all this, glittered and painted and glittered a 40-foot tree. Unbeknownst to me or anybody else at the time was that in so doing, the moisture of the tree kind of was sealed up and sent up to the tips of the tree and literally brought it back to life. There you go. Thank you, Noah. no big deal, whatever, just bringing nature back to life, right? That's what glitter does. I'm just telling you. Yeah, it was real funny early on. Some conservationists like, what about and then the tree comes back to life. They're like, yes, nothing to say now, do you? No. It's all good. So yeah, kept on going, shiny, healthy scar formations and cellular combinations, a barrage of this is called stacks on stacks on stacks, and it's 4 feet by 8 feet wide stacks of Air Jordan shoes. However, so I'm feeling great with my new lungs. I'm able to play with my kids, teach them to ride bikes. We're climbing mountains, doing all this fantastic stuff for a year and a half. We moved back to New York City. Feeling so well. We had lived there before, and now we moved back with kids. And upon arriving there, realized actually just before that there was some rejection going on in my lungs. But rejection can mean a lot of things, and we just weren't quite sure what all was going on. So we just went ahead with the move. My lung function went from 95% in June to 10% in November. In New York City, where there's just stairs everywhere, right? I mean, it's walking and stairs. It was just murder. So antibody issues from my donor lungs prevented, it counteracted in my body and just shrunk my airways. So I'm going from I could run 4 or 5 miles to I can't get up a flight of stairs, trapped in those subway. I mean, it was just horrifying. And when I finally could work my way up after, however many minutes it took me to get up one flight of stairs, there's nothing but cold wind at the top. It was a nightmare. So I'm being seen now at Columbia Hospital, which the first visit was, you're probably looking at a second lung transplant. So like one of those moments so many you're familiar with of just like, how many mountains is it going to take? So they list me again, but the bad news is not even that I'm getting listed again, but that because of the antibodies, I'm screening out 71% of people who are a match to me. So Columbia is saying to me, there's no chance you're getting transplanted here. There's just no way. You're too far down on the list. You are too selective of people who might be a match to you, screen out 71% of the small percentage that would be a match to you. So they're going, your only chance is at Duke University. You got to get down to Duke. That's your only shot. Unlikely that you even have one there. But so we do all the things with Duke. You have to relocate to even be listed. So we're looking at, we got kids and all this. We're looking at houses and schools and all this stuff is happening. This, by the way, is a rendition called Ascending and Descending of the subway stairwell by our house in Brooklyn, where, I would have to go up and down all the time and just kind of wonder, how am I going to possibly get up this stairwell? And I would, check my phone a million times along the way, just kind of slowly work my way up. And again, you just sort of feel the vision up there of the shining light of like, I had this belief I would get up there, but I had no idea how that was going to work out. Okay, so we are going to go to Duke, and we have an evaluation scheduled to see if they'll even take me. And I get a phone call from this woman who had followed me on Instagram, knew the story. I had never met her before, but her cousin passed away, and the family talked. They wanted to donate his lungs to me. So I said, that is so sweet of you. Thanks for thinking of me. I'm so sorry for your loss, praying for your family. That's not how this works. There's a list and a protocol, and there's this is how these things go. She didn't know. So we hung up the phone. I didn't tell my wife. I didn't tell my kids. Never once in my mind did I think, what if this could be, just never, there's no chance, right? The next day, I get a call from my doctor who said, this woman called and has lungs for you. And I said, first of all, that's something you can do. That's possible. And she said, I've never heard of it before, but apparently, yes, you can do deceased will donations. And I said, second of all, it's a match to me. And she goes, long story short, yes, does have a couple of the antibodies which we've been trying to screen, but not the main ones. And I go, so my wife and I, now my wife's on the phone, going like, well, we can't do that if that's some of the antibodies. And she goes, well, hang on, because we've all talked in New York and consulted with St. Louis, where the first transplant was. We all concur you should take these lungs. And I go, why? And she says, well, we don't know if you get another chance, one. And then two, she says it just like this. We have some research around retransplanted lungs, but not a lot. So we have some ideas on what we think will work, but we don't really know. How comforting, right? So I say, do we have some time to think about this? And she goes, yes, you have a half an hour. And so in a half an hour, we're thinking, praying, making some calls, and it just felt like, okay, this is a crazy collision of events and there's still lots of steps in the process, right? Dry runs happen all the time. If it's not meant to be, it won't happen. So we go ahead, they fly a doctor out to Kansas City, of all places, where the lungs were, kind of outside of Kansas City. He looks at the lungs, they look good. He flies back with them. They tell me, be up at the Columbia Hospital by 1 a.m. We'll know by 5 if it's a go. So I'm there by myself in this kind of dingy little room in Columbia. From 1 a.m. to 4:45, they call and they're like, the lungs are here. They look great. We're taking back right now. So within 7 minutes, they had me out. So I'm on a bed calling, my wife, come get an Uber up, and calling my parents, get a flight and all this. And so they wheel me back there and put me out. And both times as I've gone out for, as they're putting me out, I love everybody in this room right now. Thank you so much for what you're doing as I'm going down. So grateful. So they 7 hours of surgery, everything works great. I wake up to, after some recovery, all these surgeons standing around me going, you're doing great. Now, what happened? Instagram? What was this? So like, it's just kind of this thing, right? So they're all excited for me. All my life, it had been this sort of sense of like, even after the first transplant, is everything going to work out? Are all the tests okay? Is everything? After that second one, I can't even describe the sense of like, apparently I'm just supposed to be here, like apparently I just can't mess this up too much. Like I just, how do you possibly explain? So here's me in recovery from my second double lung transplant. And as you'd imagine, artist that I am, what am I going to do but make a lot more art about this? And so these visions start kind of flooding in about, here's this vision kind of in the second lung transplant of these sort of scar portals, almost like these dimensions, and all these ambulances delivering these bronchial branches for help and aid. It's just so difficult to write this, to visually describe the feeling of one day there's no hope for you at all. We have no lungs for you. There's no chance. And the next day, here I am waking up, breathing well with somebody's lungs. I mean, it's just absolutely surreal. So following, shows and things regarding all this work, it keeps on going. Ambulances. This series was called Gates in Proximity to Paradise, right? So kind of a play off the Gates of Paradise, right? Again, that tension of like, you never ever want to see ambulance doors until you really want to see ambulance doors, right? And then they're like salvation. So I'm running through this. How are we doing on time? We're already at 11:30, aren't we? Okay. I'm gonna scan through stories on all of these, but I'm just gonna kind of work our way towards COVID, right? It felt like to me, everybody joined our mask party, right? That we had been at for years, and nobody wanted to be at this party, but we were all there together. So I did this series called Mask Like Me, and of all my friends, just anybody that wanted a mass portrait. So, I mean, this just ended up being hundreds and hundreds of mass portraits. We did for some different clinics, entire, nursing units or, entire medical staff at different places, just kind of blessing them. It almost felt like war portraiture in a way, it's like, thank you for all the work that you're doing and the battling. You're in there risking your life. This piece is called Every Pill I've Ever Taken, which is this is 7 feet by 8 feet, an imagination of of course, can't fit every pill in there, but one day I'd love to do that installation. So it was just, multiple rooms. All right, skipping through the sake of time. Yeah, my pillbox. Collision of scars. As we move to California, I'm in art. My wife's in fitness. It was kind of a good move in those regards, but you can be outside so much here, and we're in the midst of COVID, and nightmare for an immunocompromised person like me is indoors in the winter. Everybody, in flu season, COVID during the school play or whatever the thing might be. So I start doing images like this, and then this fusion of this, actually talking about the word paradox, is called Paradoxical Paradise. The surgery, the actual title is surgery diptych. And so it's the two surgery scenes rendered as if they're in this exotic forest, so all this exotic plant life around and the two surgery scenes. So you have both the intensity, again, everything speaking to both the trauma and the difficulty, the sadness of all the people that we've lost, and also the joy of communities like this. I mean, it's too much. Either way is too much for our hearts to hold. And how do we possibly begin to contain all that? I try to work this out in the research that I do. So there's both of the pieces together there. This is a project in Sydney, Australia, which is that pillbox again, individual small paintings. I'm trying to create, the title was Pillbox Forever. And so this is at the Casula Powerhouse Museum in Sydney, the largest pillbox basically that I could make, which composed of 678 small paintings of pillbox sections here. And then this was done now, a year and a half ago with my son in Cape Town, South Africa. This is the first hospital to do heart transplant in the world. And now they do heart and lung transplants for the whole of Africa for medically uninsured patients. So this amazing place that they had requested some artwork, and I sent them years ago, but I'm like, we got to go there and paint on these walls, which we did, paint on several walls in there, which was a glorious experience. They were all super kind. It still was an African hospital in that wall, the other side of it was the ICU, and there was no isolation at all, and nobody's wearing masks or anything. It was, so we were trying to paint very quickly. Super kind people. So that's most of what I have for you today, but I wanted to get one shot in of my amazing family in Japan recently. Did they just leave now for this part? Yeah, didn't they? Okay. Well, Noah's here. All right. So yeah, it's all good. It's real life out here. Again, to the heart of that second transplant story, I would not have known how to hope for the life that I now step into. I mean, there was no way to imagine it. But the last thing I'm going to tell you about, last project, is something I've been working on for 7 years, which is writing that was all done prior to that second transplant, specifically from the valley of there's no hope for me, there's no possibility. Everyone is telling me all the information, all the facts are saying there's no hope. And what do you do when there is no hope at all? How do you have hope when there's no hope? So the title of this book that I pray to God is actually coming out this year, but it's gonna be soon. Guts, Glitter, Glory, Finding Hope in Hopelessness. So just tell you, there's a lot to say about this. I'll tell you just the crux. I worked really hard throughout my life, was compliant, exercised, did all this stuff, and that mattered, but none of that saved me. 2 different people literally gave up their breath and their life, and I did the work of receiving those 2 lives, which was very difficult, not easy to receive, but I did step into receiving them. And not just that, but all the support and prayers and hope of people like you all over the world, right? More than I could possibly contain in myself. And how could I possibly pay that back? The very point is that I can't turn around and give somebody else my lungs. I get to receive. And it's very hard for us Western Americans to receive, is it not? Right? We want to earn all our stuff, right? We want to, yes, thank you. We want to, pick ourselves up from bootstraps. I forget what even movie it was, some Will Ferrell movie, where they're going, I built this company up from the ground up and an $8 million loan from my father. It's just like, who are we? We all need each other. We all need help. And it's the very difficult and humbling thing of receiving that which I could never give to myself. Not so different for people outside the CF stratosphere, because nobody earned breathing, right? It's a gift, whether through transplant, through natural birth, whatever the case might be. They didn't look at my resume. They didn't do any moral evaluation when I was listed for transplant. It was a gift. And the invitation was, do I receive it or not? So for me, a culmination of this writing and the artwork is do we have the guts, glitter and glory, to receive that which is available to us, to in a sense, get over ourselves, right? And receive the help that we all need. There's a lovely scripture verse that just simply says, what do you have that you didn't receive, right? I mean, and if you received it, then what would there be to brag about, right? We need each other. I am alive because of people like you. Even though this is, I've attended here virtually before. This is my first time in person, and I'm so excited to be here. That's right. But even before I met a single one of you, what you were doing in rooms like this, raising the funds that you do, doing the research that you do, I am alive because of it. And you have inspired hope so far beyond what you could ever know. And people like me, and I'm wondering if it's everybody, get to do the difficult work of receiving that which you could never do for yourself. Are we in agreement? Yeah. Can I get an amen? All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, CFRI. Thank you, Siri. Thank you, everybody here, for all you do, for especially, I mean, not just the stuff that gets applause and awards, but I want to really thank you for all the unseen, for all the experiments that don't work out, for all the volunteering you're doing that seems like it doesn't matter, right? But for all the hope you're trying to spread, where it seems like not a lot of steam or momentum gets it. Those are the moments, right? The seemingly hopeless times that turn into immense hope. And I now use the terms in my artwork and in this book, aggressive joy and aggressive hope. And dare I say, offensive hope and offensive joy. It would have been offensive for somebody to come in the depths of my situation and say, don't worry, it's going to work out all fine, right? I mean, it would have been like, what are you talking about? Do you even know? But that is precisely the kind of hope that we carry. And that is the spirit behind CFRI, is it not? Right? Offensive hope and offensive joy that dares to dream, that dares to hope specifically in the moments where there would seem to be no hope. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for who you are, and thank you for hoping. Thanks for having me.